Hello there, Brick Fanatics. Series 9 of the BrickLink Designer Program now has its 5 finalist sets, which will go up for crowdfunding this time next year-ish, give or take in limited quantities. Just as a quick refresher, the BrickLink Designer Program allows fans to submit their own projects for consideration as an official LEGO set. 5 of them are selected based on a crowd vote each series, and then after a period of finessing these designs, they will go up for a pre-order. They will not be sold in stores worldwide. They will only be available during that pre-order window. There were well over 400 submissions for this particular series. As mentioned in our previous video on the BrickLink Designer Program, some of the designers who designed some of these projects are actually among our viewers. Hello to you. Commiserations to you if you did not make the cut this time around. I was really hoping for you. There is always that bittersweet moment whenever the finalists for a series are announced, because a lot of people who are invested in some of these projects will be saying to themselves, I wish my favourite had been chosen, or indeed, I wish my project had been chosen. I worked really hard on that. It's a bit disappointing to not have that selected. I personally don't have any skin in the game this time around, but I just want to say, if you are one of the people who submitted a design and it hasn't been selected, genuinely I feel for you. I was rooting for you. Hopefully you can have better luck next time. Unfortunately, with the design of this program as it is at the moment, there are always going to be a lot more submissions than there are opportunities for people to have actual sets made. For those for whom it is relevant, Series 10 will start accepting submissions on the 19th of January, so you've got a few months to just kind of polish up whatever it is that you've already made, or indeed work on entirely new designs ready for that. I hope that we will see some really cool, fun designs, and in the meantime, I know that the BrickLink team's hope for the program is that a bunch of those cool designs that don't get selected for the crowdfunding stage instead get to turn up in other places, that people will offer up the instructions on various different other websites so that they can still say, I've made this cool thing, and that people can still enjoy it. But okay, all of that out of the way, let's have a look at the 5 finalists this time around. We have here a selection of sets that all pair very well together. You could almost see this as a little collection in its own right. If you owned all of these and had them all on a shelf next to each other, they would feel like part of a unified whole. All of these designs are minifigure scale, they're all vaguely nostalgic rather than being futuristic in any way, and they're all quite brown. There's a lot of brown on display here. The 5 finalists are Wild West Blacksmith by Lucky, The Fisherman's Village by Rockin' Bricks 31, Sleepy Dragon Inn by Marin BD, Pumpkin Patch by Sophie Builds, and Wood Brick Freight Depot by Mind the Brick. So we've got a smattering of sets here that hit a lot of the same notes that we often see. We've got, for example, a Wild West set, we've got a train set, we've got a medieval set, and we've got something that is vaguely aquatic or on the side of the ocean, which is something that does tend to turn up quite often in the BrickLink Designer Program. We've also got pumpkins. That's kind of a wild card. The littler sets among these are often the wild card, where you'll get something just a little bit unusual. This time around it is, I think, vaguely farming related, which does tie in quite well with some of the more nature focused ones that we've had in the past. I almost said naturist sets. That's something very different. There's no pirate set this time around, but in fairness, pirate fans like myself have been eating pretty good lately, so I'm not going to complain. There's also, and I imagine this is going to be a big factor for how a lot of people choose to spend their money with this series, there's also not a big castle this time around. Instead, we've got the Sleepy Dragon Inn, which is the medieval set this time around, but it feels less like a classic castle set and more like a Dungeons and Dragons set, especially if you look at this lineup of minifigures. And that is, of course, an offering which is adjacent or tangential to the classic medieval castle theme. But for a lot of people, the BrickLink Designer Program is an opportunity for big, expansive, absolutely gorgeous castle sets that you would not get otherwise. And this time around, we've got something which, while yes, absolutely super duper cool in its own right, doesn't have any turrets to it. If you look at a bunch of the submissions for this particular series, especially castle submissions, you're going to see the same idea coming up time and time again. People want a home for the Kraken Knights. The Kraken Knight being a faction that was introduced in the minifigure vending machine set, but which doesn't have a dedicated actual space yet. It doesn't have its own castle or its own boat or something similar to that. It's just that minifigure right now. And what you often find in the BrickLink Designer Program is when a bunch of different people submit basically the same kind of idea, especially especially in the castle theme, it may end up being very, very popular, but all of these similar designs tend to split the vote, and people vote very widely across all of these different similar projects, and that means that no one project ends up being at the top of the list when all of the fan votes are counted. So Sleepy Dragon Inn has a Kraken Knight minifigure torso in there, but it's also got a bunch of other things here. It is very clearly Dungeons and Dragons inspired. That is absolutely wonderful for the kinds of LEGO fans who have been desperate for more D&D sets, because we've got the big old giant red Dragon's Keep, we've got the individual little collectible minifigures, but it would be nice to have a few more sets based on this particular IP partner. And here we have something which is technically not Dungeons and Dragons, but it's basically Dungeons and Dragons, and it gives you that tavern, which is where all D&D adventures start. So that's probably the set among all of these that is going to sell the fastest and sell the most units when these all go up for pre-order next year. And I imagine we will see a similar popularity with Wood Brick Freight Depot and with the Wild West Blacksmith, because these are themes that have a dedicated, very passionate fan base that don't always get served something every single series for the BrickLink Designer Program. Pumpkin Patch is going to be a little one that a lot of people are going to pick up for fun, not necessarily something that everybody is desperate for, but something which is an easier, more accessible set. Because this one's got such a low piece count, just barely over 500 pieces, it's going to be a lot cheaper than some of these sets which have got thousands of elements, and that means that for people who want a BrickLink Designer Program set but don't want to have to break the bank for it, this is going to be that offering this time around, and for that reason they tend to be fairly popular, whether or not they have the same kind of super passionate fan base that some of these other designs will have pushing them along. Among all of these though, the one that has caught my eye the most is the Fisherman's Village. I selected this one for discussion previously in one of our videos because I do think it's absolutely gorgeous. It's a really, really nice design, lots of really cool colours on display here, that wonderful nostalgic vibe to it, and of course, as said, I feel like aquatic sets or sets based on the seafront tend to do quite well in the BrickLink Designer Program because they are something that is not being served by the wider LEGO catalogue and something that fans can get really, really into in making these cool designs. It just so happens, and this really is just a coincidence, but it just so happens that most of the BrickLink Designer Program sets that I've had for review on this channel have been in some way on the seafront. You've had things like the Harbour Master's Office, you've got the Medieval Seaside Market, and then of course pirate sets like Thieves of Tortuga and the wonderful Ominous Isle. All of these in some way seaside related, and as I look at all of these, the one that I'm the most eager to get my hands on personally is the Fisherman's Village. It would go very well with all of these. I think I kind of need to build a scene with all of these BrickLink Designer Program sets next to each other because they make for quite a fun collection that I have accidentally acquired. Anyway though, that is Series 9 of the BrickLink Designer Program. Which of these designs are your absolute favourites? Let us know in the comments down below, and do all of the rest of the YouTube things. Give this video a thumbs up, hit subscribe and the notification bell. If you're going to be making any lego.com purchases in the near future, you can use the affiliate link in the description or the QR code that is currently on screen. They take you straight to the LEGO website and we get a percentage of the sale when you purchase through those links. Helps to support Brick Fanatics, doesn't cost you a penny extra. You can also go to brickfanatics.com for coverage of all things LEGO and sign up to our newsletter so that you never miss anything LEGO related ever again. Thank you very much for watching and have a wonderful day.